Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hello.
Oh, good morning,
Welcome.
everybody. I'm just going to because this is the exciting thing for me. If you look up in the corner that we have our new White Hat Way logo.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
due for a kind of a enhancement on that for some time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
glad to have that.
we sent out a big shout out to Anna Maria Beck.
Mhm.
And she designed our first one, and so we just shout of appreciation for getting us
getting us going, carried
Mhm.
us this far, and it just
Yeah.
was due for an update. We're sending out some new materials and just kind of have a lot of places that logo is going to be showing up.
Yeah.
And so just part of
Lots of
stepping
new
forward.
stuff,
Yeah.
Good things.
Yeah, for sure.
Good things. So we really like it. But anything else we need to just
No, big announcements. We got one more V8 meeting this week. I got a V8 Plus meeting this week with Allison Harrison is coming to talk to her, kind of Ask a Lawyer series.
Ask a Lawyer series. So
Right.
she'll be coming on with our V8 Plus members to talk about some of the big things that are happening and to answer questions and
Right.
all of that.
For sure.
So it's kind of who was it? I was talking to someone recently and they're like, that's a pretty awesome thing to be able to have an attorney sit there in a small setting where it's like you're firing questions and you know how and knowing too that as a dealer that whatever it is that's talked there is confidential because everyone's signed a confidential agreement.
Closed agreement.
Cool.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So otherwise, just got 2 meetings already done for V8, and I can put out a word real quick that we're anticipating making our group at the end of the month, the 27th, to be, is that, 2 weeks from, no, sorry, it's a week from tomorrow would be the 27th. And so we're likely to open that meeting for people to sit in who are interested in B8. So you can have a look at that. So all good.
Sounds good.
Shall we dive into our topic?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
We've had, this is something we've been kind of volleying back and forth over the last few days of some thoughts around it and around our topic about it's also where you say it. And so if you don't mind, when I was raising my kids, because we talk frequently about, it's kind of this it's a teaching thing, it's a training thing, and it's a foundational training thing. Is I all the time talk to the kids about it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so it was actually I have to stop. Thank you, George.
Yeah.
We really, really love it. I appreciate that. He loves the logo. But it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so, we would talk frequently with the kids and it's like, oh man, it's like, okay, so how do you say that without
But Mom, that's what I said.
It's like you didn't say it that way. And I'm not talking about sugarcoating everything.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between being passive in how you speak and being direct, but being direct in a way that's not unkind.
Yeah.
And so we taught an awful lot. I taught the kids an awful lot, and so we're sitting around dinner and the kids are reminiscing about stuff, and they're like momisms, and that was one of the momisms that came up. Is it's not what you say, but how you say it. The other one was no one can make you feel anything.
Yeah,
that's your choice.
And I would say it's not only what you say, because I think what you say also matters.
It does.
It's not that it's one instead of the other. It's they both matter. And so I think where that came about, I heard that expression more when I met you. I'd heard it before, of course, but when I met you and started spending time with you and the kids, it's like that we hear that expression more. And I think it's only recently in the last couple of weeks that this thing started to occur to me that it also matters where you say it. And as we go through this topic today, that's why this came up, because it in this kind of context of White Hat Way and what that looks like, and transparency, and all the things that White Way represents, there's so many layers to this.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's various types of context
Mm-hmm.
that would factor in this
Mm-hmm.
kind of a conversation. But I think the one that kind of was on my mind whenever this first came around is like, it's what we say publicly. You know, if we say one thing publicly and then we say a different thing in small groups or behind closed doors or whatever, right? And then that gets out, then obviously credibility is eroded, trust is eroded. And so there's so many different applications for this. It can be, you know, on a large conversation across, you know, an entire industry. It can be conversations within a building on a team, you know, management team, and trying to, you know, execute on a business. There are elements to this that are significant, but obviously with White Hat Way, trust and transparency and integrity are such a big part of what we're striving to identify, and you know, provide tools for people to be able to say, this is how I can make sure that I operate in a way that's consistent with that. Consistency is another big word that comes up. We can go through.
It's consistency and transparency, and
Yeah.
you know, a couple of those things around. It's, you know, because this is a big communication, because communication is one of the principles of White Hat Way. And then transparency and honesty and all of these things. So this is like White Hat Way in action around you know, what you're communicating to your consumer, to your team, to your, even this flows into your personal relationships, your business relationships. It's like there's just, this is kind of like we were talking a long time ago about like humaning 101. This is actually like a 201 kind of thing, some kind of topic about, you know, it's also where you say it, and there are places that are more appropriate than others, and about timing, about when you say it, where you say it.
Yeah, and I think the fun thing this morning is you and I were talking about this over coffee, as we do a lot of mornings. We're on our upcoming podcast. Is I found it interesting how you and I kind of, I wouldn't say tangle, but we had different views on certain elements of this. And that's okay, right? And I think
we do disagree.
It's
so
happened.
For those of you guys who are listening, it does. I mean, we do, but we also don't put a lot of energy into it.
Right.
You know. So
and I eventually acknowledge that I'm wrong, and Michelle, right? So no, it's all good. No, I think for today it was just kind of this thing about Michelle, you know, stated an alternate position, and I said, you know, I still feel the same way. Like, I hear you, I understand where you're coming from, and I just basically said, in the conversation was, regardless of what the specific subject was about, it was like, for me, anytime I'm not sure about public versus private when it comes to transparency, I'm just going to typically choose public.
So there are different layers of this.
Of course.
That you know, and it's like, the one is this a public thing or is this a private thing?
Right.
That's like the first layer of where you say it.
Right.
Is this a public thing or this is a private thing?
Right.
And then there's the next layer of that is whether or not it's appropriate.
Right.
In the place that you choose to have the conversation. And you know, it's because, you know, this is something that we were like, there's stuff about, okay, another layer is this about grumbling, or is this about just being really open about what we're doing, and you know, like the why we're doing something. So there's like, is it better public, is it better private,
right? Or
is it a layer in between where it's like, it's not public, but it's our team public, and or it's our executive staff public, or you know, private kind of thing. And then,
and I think it's let me back up to, you know, we did our first White Hat certification course in February. We had students come in from, you know, all over the country, and we had you some really great. It was almost focus group like. We were able to take people through the curriculum and had education and ultimately certify the folks. And as we went through it, there were several points that we were able to kind of introduce or sort of bring forward and get feedback around. And one of the things that I asked the room was, at the end of the thing, I just kind of said, have you heard me say anything throughout this day and a half that we've been together? Have you heard me say anything that you wouldn't want your customers or your team to hear?
Yes.
So in that way, and so part of this is, as a dude, I have a simple mind, right? And that just means for me, it's way easier to not worry about what I said to so-and-so and what I said to so-and-so. It's like, it's way easier for me to be as public as possible and then be consistent in that.
This is where we diverged.
Right. Because she doesn't have a simple mind.
Because I don't have a much more, I'm a chick.
Right.
And I'm sorry, that's really diminishing all the things. But so a woman's mind is connected to all of the boxes that are in their awareness. And a man's is like they pull out a box and nothing else is connected. With a woman, you pull out a box and you pull out, if you're looking at a big wall of boxes, you're pulling out 27 other boxes with the ones.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at it from a kind of a different mindset. And I'm like, there are some things that are not okay to talk about publicly until it's ready.
And I do follow that. I mean, I do get that. There are certainly things that are going to need to remain private, right? Especially when it affects others and you're talking about it out in front of something else. And so I totally get that. I think the parts that I'm mostly referring to when I say all things being equal, I'm going to choose public is we're driving a movement. Right.
Well, and this is on our personal, like what we're doing level. Yes, we're driving a movement.
And when we get on these microphones, this stuff goes out to YouTube, which means it's available everywhere. So I think I recognize the opportunity in that, because what it means for us is that we can come on these microphones, and whether 5 people listen or 5,000 people listen, it's like the reality is we can say the thing that is true for us. And that will be true tomorrow.
True.
Right. And so that lets us.
It's like the more public you are, the more it's like this is something that's foundational. I mean, this is a truth. Yeah.
It's one of the things that the platform provides. And so I wasn't thinking about the podcast when we brought the subject as much as I was just thinking that the podcast is a public sort of medium for us. It's a way for us to state the things. And again, it can be recorded, it can be played later. But I think for me, the thing I appreciate about it is the opportunity to go forward and state, especially around this mission and this movement, the things that are sort of central. Like it's very much a heart matter, right? And so a lot of things that we're talking about here are matters of the heart. And so I think when I talk about those things, I feel comfortable in going out there and saying, this is the thing, this is what we're building. And because we know it's going to take, when you build a movement, you got to inspire people to come and be a part of it, and to be consistent in the message is step one.
True.
And so I think it's one of the things that I appreciate about having that opportunity, so that, because when I say where you say it, it's like, no matter where we're talking about the things, I really appreciate the chance to make sure people can see private room, public room, right?
So
the thing is the same.
Yeah, and like this is a public room.
Okay.
And so one of the things when we were talking about this in regards to applications for dealerships, what is an appropriate thing about being transparent and not being transparent?
Right.
And so, we were talking about transparency in the purchase process of like there, and we both on the same page. So like as a customer sitting there.
Oh,
so the process of sales.
Right. Okay.
So we both were in very close agreement in, there is something that just seems, even if there is nothing shady in the process, that when there is a conversation outside of the decision maker's ears of I'm going to buy this car or not, when there's a conversation, that there is a tendency to lean towards what are they talking about? They're conniving, they're conspiring against me or whatever. And so that's a real thing that as dealers and business owners that we it's like where you say it kind of thing. It's being transparent, is that when we physically behave in a way where we are removing ourselves to have a conversation in a way that leaves a lot of that's when, especially when you're talking about with a customer, that's a tricky thing, because it undermines the trust when you do that. And so we were kind of talking through, how do you handle that? Because most everybody here, you've gone to buy a new car at a franchise. Let's just say a franchise, because most of us have experienced that. And there's this thing, I appreciate the leaving someone alone to have a private conversation, but when they say, hey, I need to go ask about a thing, and they get up and they go to someone behind a glass wall or whatever, and they're having a conversation or whatever, it feels like, okay, they're loading themselves for bear to pressure me into this thing.
It feels that way.
It does.
That's the back to the perception is reality, right?
And so like this also where you say it thing, in that a great alternative is to have the salesperson have a direct desktop connection for communication with their sales. And it's just like, hey, let me ask about this. And then they're just waiting for a response. And so there's like this level of, I'm just being really transparent and ask the question, and that there's, oh, okay, I got the answer. All right, or they're going to swing by and talk to you, and or whatever. So there's that level of, with the customer, the transparency part. There's another one that we were talking about as well, which was about, you're in the dealership and there's a difficult customer that has come in, and they have a difficult conversation. And so you may need to have a very transparent conversation, but is it appropriate to have it in front of another customer? No.
Right.
It's just not.
Right.
It's something that you have a room where you can go and have the conversation. Now the customer leaves. Is it appropriate for the customer that's still sitting there to hear any chatter from the team about what just transpired?
Right. No,
not at all.
Right.
That is absolutely not appropriate. So that's another layer of where you say it, that it's just not appropriate. And then the other one that I was like, this is one of the ones that Jim and I were like, where would you land on that? Let's say something has happened within your organization. You got a lift down, or, so-and-so has just said, a lift down is probably because then it's not a personnel thing. You got a lift down. And so the maintenance or the shop manager comes in, and is he going to have that conversation in front of the entire team with the general manager or the dealer? I would suggest that it's like, that is not a conversation that needs to happen in front of the team behind closed doors. What's your plan of act? What are we going to do about this? And then you have a conversation with the team. Hey guys, lift is down. This is what we're going to do. Let's talk about how this is going to affect all of us.
How?
And what we can be prepared for, and what we can communicate with others. There's another. It's also where you say it. So it's, not what you say, how you say, and then where you say. Those were my big things.
Yeah, and my preference would be, in your example about the lift, if I were the general manager and the service manager came in and talked to me about the lift down, I would have no problem with my door being open. And here's why. If somebody wants to come in and they want to hear the side of the conversation, we're just doing what we do at the management team. And it's not that we're conspiring against anybody else, and it's not that our decisions are open for everybody to participate in. But I don't mind you hearing us. We're just sorting out the thing. We're not, there's really nobody on our team that can't hear what we're doing. And so I could take it to another level in terms of openness. So that's kind of, I think when you close doors, the natural tendency is to create some sort of, there's a conspiracy element, or this idea that somebody is conspiring, or that it's going to, whatever decision is made in that room is going to somehow go against me or whatever. And that's avoidable. So
yes, but I mean, that's if your team, you already have a culture of that when there are hard things that happen, then we know that we're going to be told what, all of the stuff. But if you have a culture where there is conniving happening behind a closed door, that there is this kind of thing, then obviously everyone's going to think what's being said now, and all of that. But I think if you have a culture of like, first. That you're going to be really super transparent. But like if a shop manager wants to have a conversation about a problem employee, of course you're going to shut the door. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have that door open, because it is a private conversation. And then, if you decide like this problem employee, they're going to be let go, then that's a public conversation with the rest of the team.
Yeah. And as I said, of course there are private conversations. Of course there are things that are sensitive that nobody needs to hear. Sometimes those are in the context of competitive strategy. I mean, whatever that might be. It might be a team thing. It might be a management decision that, is not something to be open. I certainly understand those things. I'm simply suggesting that the opportunity that we have in being transparent and the opportunity that is afforded when we can say publicly the same things that we say privately, because when people hear me say something on this microphone, one thing, and then they hear me in a private meeting to say something different,
aspect of this.
I've naturally eroded the trust that they would have in me. That would naturally start to cut into my authenticity. And so I think, and I have a meeting today, is a second meeting with somebody who could be a strong financial partner. Right. And so this is it's an interesting opportunity. And what this person will hear me say today is the same thing that I have said to my team, our team up to now, which is we're not going to align with people financially, shareholders, whatever the investment side looks like, that don't align with this mission that we're on.
Yes.
Why? Because it's really important to me that we don't create our own stresses and pressures, that we are playing a long game. And I don't say that because it sounds good. I say that because that's where we are. That's what we choose. And so this is why I can say the same thing in this private meeting that I would say on this microphone or with our team meetings, is that's the benefit of transparency and consistency.
Absolutely.
And so this is the opportunity, I think. So you can take this down to the dealership level as a dealer with their team or whatever that opportunity is when we seize the opportunity to say the same things to everyone. And the best way we do that is just like in our case, it's easy. This core mission is so foundational, right? That, that's not going to change for me. And I'm not going to just, well, we better take this partner because our bank accounts are a little thin. We better take this partner. Well, no, that's not what you said yesterday.
Well,
right?
And so I see there's multiple layers again with this about transparency. There is about growth. There is about our why. There is about our foundational principles. And there's another side of it is like difficult conversations, friction in the workplace.
Of course.
Where because I think it's really essential, for instance, it is human to feel grumbly about things that come along. It's human. And when I say grumbly, it's like, as your work, because not everyone is Pollyanna, not everyone is kumbaya.
Sure.
And it's like problems come and, and it's a natural human tendency to vent, to grumble.
Right.
And so for dealers, this is another really, really big one about where you say it.
Right.
And because the words that come out of a dealer's mouth or a leader's mouth sets the tone for everyone.
Right.
And so, it's not about, hey, I should never grumble, but it's about where you grumble.
Yeah.
And so this is another layer of this. And so, I look at Jim and I when we are something happens and we're feeling around business and we're feeling grumbly about it.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about it, the two of us, but we don't go and talk to our team members about it.
Right.
And so there's an appropriate level of where you say it in that as well,
Right.
because when you grumble about things that you have every right in the world to feel frustrated about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's human. This is a human experience. No one is going to go through their day, their week, their month, whatever, without having anything that isn't just like,
Right.
When we grumble in the wrong places,
Right.
even if it's an appropriate grumble, that we undermine a culture.
Right.
And so that's another, it's also about where you say it. So, I know like with us and with our business, there's like two conversations here happening. There's like, hey, everybody, we are here and this is what we're doing and we're being transparent and this is where we're saying it.
Right.
And then there's another of dealers, when you have a thing and you're talking about a situation or whatever, these are the things that are, it's about also where you say it.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. And so it can be we're excited to announce,
right,
this is, this is how we handle the thing, da 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 da. And then there's disarming, dismantle, or what do they call it? It's when there's a difficult situation, de-escalating. And so, for instance, too, a dealer, if someone is in there in a lobby just yelling at someone, it is 100% appropriate for that dealer to come in and say, it is inappropriate for you to talk to my people like that. It is a cornerstone of that we speak with respect. So how about we do this?
Right.
And so it's not kick out or whatever, but it's just like this is a really important thing for us. And I understand that you're frustrated. Why don't we go have a conversation, or whatever. Sure. But having your team also see you as a dealer, back them the heck up with those principles as well. In a how you say it, but where you say it, that your team knows that you've got their back, that you are being transparent, that you are staying committed and aligned with your mission and your values and all of this stuff. And they can also see in the where you say it is, as we practice these things, we also have the opportunity to lead in other ways than just in our business. It's like, this is a healthy way of having a conversation.
And I would say that, the way we think about way, and this is something I've always lived by in business anyway, like in managing and owning businesses. I think that thing you talk about with an unhappy customer really should be the exception. And this is why you'd have, when your culture is such that you communicate thoroughly and effectively, then this really you should recognize it as the exception. If it's happening frequently, then we've got a culture communication / management problem. If we're seeing that very regularly. But I think the piece that I would throw in there too is like, this is, as a dealer owner in the past, I used to say to our team, and I occasionally would use the expression with a customer, is that, when I made the decision to open a business, I made the decision before I ever met the first customer that I'm going to treat everybody the same. I'm not going to do for one customer what I wouldn't do for another customer, or the next customer in here with a different situation. I'm going to do the same for everyone. And so what I'm offering you today is the same thing I offer to everyone. My team knows that. They're going to hear me say that to you, and they're going to hear me in training. That's the approach that we bring. And that lets me be consistent. Again, simple mind. I don't have to remember what I said to a customer 3 weeks ago. I just do the same thing all the time. Yep. I have great consistency in that. And doesn't mean every customer goes away happy. Right? I understand that about business, right? There's going to be miscommunications. You can't solve them all. And there will be customers go away unhappy. That ought to be the exception, right? It shouldn't happen a lot. And I think the big part here for me is just the piece that is so interesting about all of it. It's like, when Ken and I recorded, so Ken Yang, some folks know, is our director of dealer services, and so Ken and I started recording V8W, right? And so
V8 White Hat Way.
Yeah, which is a White Hat Way track of V8, and we just
Mm-hmm.
did our first recording session, last week, and or I guess it was Monday. But anyway, we've got that, and folks will be able to see that. We'll introduce in our V8 track, and then some will be released to YouTube. But the idea, as we talk through that, you realize that what White Hat Way has the opportunity to do for folks is to create an identity, a playbook, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, that says when we unite around these practices and principles, that we have a chance to have a team that's much more cohesive
Mm-hmm.
in a short period of time when we can articulate that, stick to it, show that we really mean it. Like the authentic
Mhm.
part of that is significant. We got to
Mhm.
show that we really mean it. And then the other thing for me is just because if I'm a dealer, because I'm thinking about this often in these kind of contexts, I'm thinking about our industry and all the people that we're, inviting to collaborate
Mhm.
with us on White Hat Way. And we've said it again and again over the years, like we're striving for inclusion. Right.
Mhm.
This is about and so that means being public and say it's not that we like you and we like
Mhm.
these people better. We've said to everybody, we're building something inclusive. We want everybody to be a part of it. This is going to have, that's the nature of a movement. If we're really going to have an impact, and we are,
Mhm.
then it requires, being open and inviting folks to that mission, right?
Mhm.
They'll have to align with it, right? That it has to fit.
Yes.
But I think folks are welcome to join in the mission. And so that's the beautiful thing for me is like the inclusivity part that comes along with this. And we haven't even gotten, I mentioned in the description of the show this morning that I went to DeepSeek and asked for help with a blog post, and I've got it teed up here, but I think we can bring that another day and I can kind of touch on some of the elements.
We can also just put it in the website and then people can find it there. And
for sure. So we can refer to it. But when we do that, I will make sure and reference, what came from, you'll be able to see the prompt of what I asked and what it fed. And, but I would say that was some of the things that came back, the words without a lot from me, without just referencing in the context of White Hat Way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what would this look like? And so the words that came back were inclusion, the authenticity that you heard me talk about. Transparency,
Mm-hmm.
consistency. These are all things that AI knows that this is how you maintain trust, whether it's in the team or however that looks. But I think this is how I see White Hat Way is that we have this opportunity to make sure that we're consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Are we perfect? No, we're not perfect over here. That's not what we're saying. And it's really even not about us in the end. It's about us being spokespeople for a thing that has a chance when we can latch onto it and put it to work in our businesses, then it has a chance to make a really profound difference.
Yeah. And I want to, in the spirit of transparency, a couple of things. Ken Yang, when you did this V8W, is a White Hat Way certified individual. One of the first ones that were certified for White Hat Way. And that, when we had that certification course and it was also, we used it as a partially as a workshop. In a way, since these are the first people, because there were dealers and vendors.
It was like a pilot
that were there. It was decided that V8 is the pathway to becoming certified. So for those of you that are listening, that there's a lot of reason behind that, because we were talking about, well, how do we know that the people that are wanting to become certified actually are aligned with the principles and the values and all of that? And so, it's one of the layers, foundational entry point layers is being in V8 for, I think we talked about at least 6 months.
Right.
And so that is so that we can meet with them and get to know them and all of that. And so why would someone want to be White Hat certified? Because there are a slew of products that are going to start being released in this next year that are really, really helpful for dealers to be able to to leverage and lean into the identity that is White Hat Way.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of products that are coming that are really going to help dealers in a profound way lean into that.
Yeah.
And so, this is something that it's like these products are around a principle, and they're around people and individuals, whether it be dealerships or vendors or whatever, that we are aligned with. It's like being good to our fellow humans, about being transparent with our fellow humans, about being kind to our fellow humans, about showing love to our fellow humans. And so this is something that it's being applied to dealerships and all of that right now. But just so that you all are, in the spirit of transparency, this is what's coming. And it's really this, like the new logo, this is one of the beginning pieces of what you're going to see that start to be like released of where we're going with this. And let me tell you, for those of you who are not super aware of what, I don't know how you can listen to this and not know what White Hat Way is kind of all about. Go to whitehatway.com. And it's, all of that's going to be changing.
I know the website's in transition, so
I
haven't been over there.
So, it's like, have at it. And we're, it's over the next couple of months, you're going to see a lot of things that just like get shifted into, all right, let's.
And I might just clarify, when you talk about people coming through VA, that's just for folks we don't know. Like there's a number of people that we know. For most
people, this is the pathway to.
Yeah.
And
because a lot of people we know them, we know their operation, we know how they conduct business, and so they have the invitations extended to some of those folks. But so I just want to be clear about that part. Like that's when we have somebody who's new. This will be invitation or nomination only for certainly
so
probably
that
for the
first
remainder
group,
of this year.
Though, was like our team members.
Right.
Are all certified.
Some industry affiliates.
Industry affiliates, and then some dealers. And so it was just a really, and that's who it's going to be available to.
Right.
And so anyone that joins our team will have to be White Hat Way certified.
Right.
They'll have to go through the thing and all of that. But vendors, and affiliates and all of that have that opportunity.
Right. So I think it's hard to talk about those things without starting to sound like a sales pitch, right? But I think what I think about what White Hat Way is, we are creating. Many of the pieces are in place. We just don't share all of them because they're kind of in beta or whatever. But the idea is we recognize that it's one thing to show up here on a Wednesday and talk about White Hat Way, and a nice thing it is, and let's all operate with principles. It's another thing to create solutions that dealers can actually implement in their business and actually see results from having. It's not that they're going to change who they are. They're still principal dealers. They're showing up at their dealership now, many of them, without holding a white hat certification. But when they come and earn that certification, now they're able to have an identity. They're able to have materials that includes things at the website and this and that allow dealers to be able to point to something that anybody can go and learn about for themselves about what it is that we subscribe to, right? So that's really, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about, is creating ways for dealers to actually be able to implement those things. And so, think about having on your business card a White Hat certified dealer principal, right? Or eventually you'll have team members in there that are White Hat certified. And so
the collections manager, whatever.
And we did that quietly. We did that quietly in February, invitation only, just because, again, we're pilot, we're beta, we're just kind of testing it.
We're anticipating this first year of White Hat Way certifications will be by invitation only.
Right, that's what I said,
You were talking about the first one. But
I say for the remainder of this year, I expect it'll be invitation only, or it'll be nomination. We'll probably get to a place where we do nomination.
White Hat certified.
Right. But that nomination is likely to lead to VA.
There really is. This is one of the things, is that there really is anyone who aligns with the principles of White Hat Way is welcome.
Yeah.
It's just anyone.
Right.
And it's not, and that's actually like a whole nother layer of this is that there is no club mentality of, or, well, you already have a dealer in my region,
Right.
or you already have a vendor that has a specific product, or any of that. There's none of that. It's like this is not a club or a referral thing or anything like that as well. This is something that anyone who aligns is welcome.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's part of what we just, in my way of thinking about it, people know, and we can wrap up here, but I just think people know that I have a real heart for this customer that we serve in the Buy Here, Pay Here segment. Like as a former dealer, manager, I just have always had a layer of empathy for these folks, and some of them find themselves in a really tough spot. And what I see is that you and I, through Way, have a chance to touch more lives through, putting a good guy seal, if you will, on dealers in these communities and being able to touch those customers through those channels. Yeah. That's where I see us having the most impact. And so that's why I say, you're not going to hear me say anything different from that. That's what it's all about for me. And so we want to see dealers be successful, and we think part of that is helping them to help their customers be successful. And that's the in a nutshell, that's the mission and strategy.
But you don't have to be White Hat Way certified to be able to really gain a lot of great education around White Hat Way principles. I mean, you don't. It's kind of like there is so much out there that's like, these are the things, and you don't have to incorporate any of these things. But if it like, hey, that sounds like it that makes an awful lot of sense. These are things that I believe in. These are things that make me feel, it feels good to help yourself. It's free. It's out there. There's so much education. There's so much education around just the foundational principles of that. The identity, the brand is a different matter. That is something that it's like certified, branded, So and it's something that is, and we had someone, I don't remember who it was, that said, so how is it different from like master dealer certification? It's like, it's very different from that. It's a very beautiful complement to that as well, because the master dealer certified, all of the NIADA is about very operational things, and this is not about operational things. This is about,
this is intangibles.
This is the heart matter. This is the it's the intangibles.
Those intangibles and warm and fuzzies. We do the best we can to help dealers understand how to apply those things and walk them through what does it look like to be a white hat dealer in underwriting or white hat dealer in the sales department, right? So we walk them through those things, but it's really about, for us, that's where ours would be different. Is we're
just out of like NIADA too, with their white hat, they're probably not going to go into the intangibles because they're there for everyone.
I can't say. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know.
But it's just, so it's understandable if they're not going into really deeply into the ethics and the heart and all of that kind of, because their audience and their platform is just like, we need to be able to communicate to all dealers. These are like straight line matters. These are compliance. These are, some of these very, very straight line matters. And so I think it's a beautiful.
I'm going to make an effort to get familiar with what the kind of the curriculum and what the kind of the qualifications or whatever of the master dealer thing, because I do know NIADA is committed to move forward on that. So again, we're supportive and we believe what we're doing is complimentary. So.
Absolutely. Okay. That's it? I love having these conversations with you. It's we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Wednesday.
Right.
We're still in tax season, right?
Everybody really a trickle. I mean, there was a spike in third week in February.
So those of you who are still in your flow. I hope that you all are having a great March. I anticipate that by the end of March it'll be pretty much so. The spike will be over. So enjoy the rest of your next couple of days. We will be back on Friday. Don't know what we're talking about yet, but I'm sure we'll come up with a good topic. There's always stuff.
Yep.
There's always stuff. All right, everybody. We know that you have a lot of choices in your day. Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks again.
Have a good one.